guys, welcome to another fun episode of Fail with Fire. I'm your podcast host, Phoenix Hot, CEO and co-founder of AdBeacon, my favorite first-party data attribution tool. But actually, we're just an all-around cool tool for agencies. That's what we are. But anyway, I am so excited to introduce you to somebody that you probably would never expect on this podcast and never realize that we were actually friends behind the scenes before Prescient AI got as big as it did in such a short amount of time. And I'd love to introduce you to Mike True. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. So excited to see you here on the podcast and in Vegas next week.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's kind of funny. We just found out that we're going to both be in Vegas at the same time. But let me go ahead and give that really, I would say, professional intro. And then I'm going to give everybody the real intro, the real of how we know each other. But Mike True is the co-founder and CEO of Prescient AI, which provides AI-driven marketing optimization solutions for omni-channel brands. Prior to starting Prescient, Mike started his AI journey with IBM, no big deal, in 2014, and then went to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue through the implementation of various artificial intelligence and analytics solutions. Did I also read in another bio that you worked at Oracle?
Yes, that was my my first job after college, actually second, where I was focused on doing database technologies. I shortened it up for the affinity between AI, what I'm doing now, and like where I started my journey.
Just a casual IBM, a casual Oracle, and a casual Prescient AI and what it's going to become. And, just to kind of give a little like flavor to this really quick, I want to just kind of set the scene. I met Mike like 2 years ago, maybe now. We were at Commerce Roundtable in San Diego. We're sitting down and we just started AdBeacon. I think we were like on our first year. Prescient AI was just starting as well. It was there, but you guys were coming to market and really trying to get some more clients. And you and I were just nerding out about first-party data, tracking what that looks like. We both hated the concept of single source of truth, this one-liner everyone uses. And even I was guilty of using in the beginning. And then we kind of took a step back and we're like, there's no such thing. And then we were just nerding out. And it was almost like an Adderall-induced like focus moment. Mind you, we're both sober, but like we're both like, oh my gosh, you're into this. And we were getting so nerdy. And I remember walking away from that conversation like, if I could have just had that conversation this weekend, it was worth it. And also just on like a human-to-human level, really great. And then a year later, we met up and you have so much success in terms of growth, so much rapid growth. And we just sat down at a bar, hung out, got to like just catch up. And it was just such a beautiful moment. So Mike is like one of the really, I think like true people in the space that I can like call and be like, yo, I want to hear what you have to say, and then not have a chip on my shoulder feeling like there's some type of way or some type of thing in the background. Like you were genuinely a good person. So I'm honored to have you on the podcast for people to hear from you, to learn from you, and we can just shoot the shit. So welcome.
I love it. It's a two-way street. And I think back often of like, we all go to a ton of conferences, and some are good for various reasons where it might be business development, maybe recruiting, maybe some like new agency partnerships. But then you have the ones where people are just so locked in like the same vein of you. And, that was for that conference for me as well. It was just like, I left there like, all right. Cause I was new to e-commerce in general. So I was like, all right, like who are kind of my people in the space here just as you're getting started. And like, there was just such a strong, professional affinity. And then, we obviously vibed out just like shooting the shit about life as well. So it's been fun.
Yeah. Grateful to call you not only like a partner in this space, but also a friend. And I think those are really cool clicked moments. But all right, as we are in like true fail with fire fashion, I always like to ask this question. If we were at a barbecue, I knew nothing about you, I didn't know who you are, and suddenly your mom or your dad or your partner grabs me and like, Phoenix, you need to meet Mike. Like you need to know what he does for work. What would they say? Because I'm always curious, like how they would introduce you.
So that's two very different introductions between my mother and my father. I talked to my dad since I've been ripping and running at this thing from the very beginning, just about business advice. And so he would be able to articulate pretty well saying, oh, I guess I got to read that back. It says, you should meet my son, Mike. He's created a very brilliant marketing analytics platforms that helps marketers feel more confident in how they spend their dollars. And it's crazy. Like he would send me, he owns like a small business, like garage door company. And he'll forward me emails about him getting cold emails about attribution. I'm like, okay, you really know what like we're talking about here for the fact that he picked up on that through the email and will shoot it over to me. And so my dad's actually intro would be like, I'd probably lean on him a little bit more than my mom. My mom's the sweetest one in the world. We talk all the time, but not so much about the business front. Um, she would probably say, my son has created a bunch of algorithms that I have no idea about what they do or how they help, but they tell people where they should spend their marketing dollars. So she's halfway there, but I don't think she'd be able to like get into the nitty gritty of like what my dad would be able to do. So both high level enough, but
Miles away from my parents. Are you
tell me.
kidding me? Are you kidding me? Look, you train them. And first and foremost, like they're your biggest fans. They can already tell if they're going to take and spend that time to do that type of intro. But
Sure.
also too, like, was your dad in sales?
My dad, like, I would ride around in the car with him when I was a kid. My best moments, and he would go door to door and like give quotes on like fixing a garage door because there was a snowstorm in Maine and he drove into it and the section broke off. And like his approach and his social cues on how to understand the audience that he's talking to is just like, it's something that I've just learned one of my biggest learnings from him. So yeah, he was a sales guy in his heart and finance background from there. So a good mix.
That's so awesome. I mean, that explains a lot about who you are and why you are the way you are, just because we get to observe our parents and how they did business. Like I can say the same for my mom. My mom was a very successful business owner, entrepreneur in general. And like the way she speaks to people and handles situations, good and bad, I've learned from. But that's really cool. No, it's super, super cool. And to answer your question, my
Yeah.
mom has no clue what I do. And still to this day, I don't even think she knows what an algorithm is. I think my mom, she still calls me and asks me if I could type up a sentence for her to send to her group chats. And I'm like, what? It's like in the middle of my day, 6 calls. Hey, can you write this thing for me? And I'm like, do you know that I work? But no, it doesn't matter because those are our parents and they take priority. And so I'm like truly impressed that your parents kind of know what you do. My mom over here, she's just proud of me and I'm grateful for it. And
I love
that's
that.
funny. Yeah.
It is. I'll call my mom and she'll be like, how's work going? And I'll tell her about like deals, like we're getting ready to close. And she'll call me every single day. And I remember like when we first met, we were like starting to chat with like Hexclad. And I was telling my mom, I was like, went to this big conference, I played golf with some folks over there. And she'd call me every day. She's like, did your Hexclad deal come through? And so she's very supportive in like the realm of like understanding in like my most simplest fashion, but what's really important to us as the business without having to be like, oh, they're using Bayesian models with a blend of some like neural networks and DAGs and all these sort of like different algorithms. So it's a good balance.
Just casual Bayesian models and neural networks.
Whatever.
And yeah, no big deal. That's amazing because that's awesome. And I think the people who genuinely care about us, the people who are genuinely rooting us on are the ones that think about that because I have a cousin who I got through my marriage when it was like 3 years ago and it was Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It was still when I was media buying and she stayed up late at night being like, did you hit 1 million? Did you hit this? Did you hit that? And I was so invested. She still is invested. She'll call me and she loved that shit because she wants to watch me succeed. And I think that kind of also comes to a peak right there in our relationships in this space because I watch people and I go, okay, I'm going to invest in you. You're one of those people. I'm going to invest in you because I know you're genuinely rooting me on and I'm genuinely rooting you on. So I'll call you and be like, did you get the Hexclad deal? Did you get this? And I mean, you even told me that we potentially will have a mutual client and I sit there and I'm just pumped, right? I'd rather both win than one win. So I think we align in many ways there. And it's cool to see that your parents like are rooting you on, especially in this obscure space. But that being said, we're not here to talk about love, Michael. We're here to talk about failure. And I think the cool part about failure is we will never become better people. We will never become better entrepreneurs, operators, founders unless we fail. And failures are often the catalysts to incredible moments and change. And I want to kind of open up the floor to you to share any failure you have, financial, personal, career-wise. What kind of changed your DNA to who you are? And what was the catalyst to change to come back and to do something more impactful in your life? So I want you to just open that brain of knowledge and I'd love to just dive in.
Yeah, it actually is it's a great question and it's highly applicable to, I have had so many failures across personal, professional, love, financial, like, I mean, that's just the nature of life. Right. But I think the one with the highest affinity to the conversation today is the failure that led into Prescient. And so, a quick backdrop on this is I lived in a van in New Zealand, Australia for a few months.
Van boy.
Van boy. I just like, I was burnt my last year at IBM. I did like 134 flights and I was just like done. And so I went into a van with my buddy and we just traveled around and we were at a blues festival in Byron Bay, Australia. And I was like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start a music tech company and I'm going to sell it to a record label. And I want to be in the music space. I'm very passionate about music. The platform was seeing if I could predict where artists should tour, right? So I built like this heat map. I tried to raise money for this and I got told no 112 times before I got my first $25,000 angel check. So 112 failures just leading up to that. And so finally got some angel money. We built out, an additional an initial dashboard, which was essentially a globe that ranked each city A, B, C, D, E, and F, and you could click into it. It would tell you like, hey, go tour at this venue. You're in Austin, you're going to LA, we have fans in Reno, Nevada. You should stop in Reno, have this local artist open up for you and use this venue, and was going to have a whole commerce plan there. Well, guess what happened to the entire world in 2020?
Yep.
COVID hit.
What's that?
COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, what else? I thought there was a
that?
lag there. I was like, no.
You're like, is she okay? No, 100%.
In 20, exactly. And I was like, my world was, honestly, it was crushed. Like, no, there's no touring for the foreseeable future. And while it wasn't like a failure, it was like a failing experience that was largely out of my control. I had recently got engaged and I'm like, hey, I could probably go back to, IBM or Google or one of the big tech companies from here. And I was like getting my resume ready. And I just kept exploring new ideas. I kept talking to new people, and I was fortunate enough to have the global head of publishing at Spotify. So if you made a song, he made sure you got paid as an advisor. And he opened up a new problem that was, can you measure the impact of paid ads on streams? Because the labels were focused on streaming music. And so it was a soul crushing experience to go through that many failures to get, we only raised like 75 grand, but it was enough to build a prototype out. And I don't know, it's just a lot of no's to get some yeses in 4 or 5 months of development and getting ready to like pilot this out and the world shuts down and that industry's no longer available.
It's a genius idea though, actually. So question for you, would you ever start that back up? What did you do with it? Did it just kind of fold and you called it a day and then started Prescient? So, because that
Yeah.
tech still needs, I don't know much about the music industry and the ins and outs on the back end, but I feel like that would save so much time, money, and also a lot of labels investing money into, that's a corrupt system in itself, but
Sure.
I would, I know lots about that, but like, I wonder if you're able to sell off the idea to someone who can bring it to fruition.
The code still sits there. We were early compared to like bands in town building that. And so now like there's been, this idea has been like, it's been taken, but we still have the code. But that company was called Vybin, VYBN. And that transitioned into, Vybin was initially the same model, some similarities of the model that we have today. But it was a blessing in disguise. Like, call a spade a spade. I'm sorry for anybody out there who's building a music tech platform. Like, it is wildly, wildly hard, especially in this current market or any market, to get, traditional venture fund to back a music tech platform. And so it was a blessing in disguise that led this into Prescient, because we still stayed in music. We just solved a different problem in music, which then in turn went over to we're doing.
I'm going to ask you like a really raw question because this is how our normal conversations go. And now it's just on board. Do you feel like asking for money, venture capitalists, like those types of meetings are a little soulless? Like you go in there and you just feel like, all right, I'm here for a mission. It's a necessary evil because like I understand. Obviously, we're bootstrapped. I'm a little too prideful. I'll share my experience as to why I don't do it, and I'm sure somebody else is going to clip this 25 years from now and be like, you're a hypocrite. But like, I went to 2 specific like mixers with a bunch of investors, and I came in there and as if anyone knows me, I'm pretty street. forward, like with my fashion. So I'm not going to wear a blazer. I'm not going to wear a pencil skirt. Like that's not going to happen, but I'm going to look
Love that about you.
presentable. Yeah. Thank you. And it's part of my brand. It's my personal brand as well. And I go in there and, I remember one specific investor I'd been speaking to for some time. He's actually a banker for an investor, and he was talking to me, and we were professional for months. And he looks me up and down and like starts checking me out. And I just remember just feeling gross in that moment because, like, number one, like I'm not wearing anything that would bring in that type of energy. But number two, it just kind of I don't want to work with you. It's a pride thing, right? A lot of people say in business, you don't have to. They always say it's a female detriment is that we are so emotionally driven, right? Aside from what you think about gender, it's an interesting take. And I do agree to a certain extent because if I just needed money, I would have gone. But for me, it's really important for me to invest in the people that invest in us. And for me, it was just a very soulless experience multiple times of asking for money, asking for investment, and kind of got to the point of pride where I'm like, screw it, we're going to do it ourselves. That was my route. I don't necessarily think that that was the smartest route because we probably would have been able to scale at a much faster rate in comparison to our competitors. But I chose that route. I want to know where your head's at with it because obviously you did do the funding route.
Yeah. Well, first off, regardless if I had four sisters or not, that stuff, like nobody should be treated that way. And it just, unequivocally makes my blood boil that you had to go through that experience. But it is what it is. You're stronger.
Yeah.
You push that off and keep it moving. So
Yeah.
you handle this.
We've talked about that. Yeah. It's kind of one of those like, okay, you're going to have your own at some point. That person is going to
Yeah.
get checked and it's not going to
Yeah.
be me today, maybe down the road. And the checking is me being on the cover of some magazine where you kick yourself. It's not going to be in this moment. But
Yeah.
yes, go ahead.
100%. So it was interesting. So when I met Cody, my co-founder, we were bootstrapping largely because, we weren't building a tech platform yet. So when we went into the music industry, they were seeing if we could do attribution. So what campaigns and channels are driving streams, as well as like a bunch of random events, as you could imagine, around an artist like Cardi B. But they were just sending us data and Cody would run it through his Jupyter's model, right? He built the math, we'd run it through the model, and then we'd get little graphs. We'd take screenshots, we put it into a summary, and we'd go back and we report them on that. And the label started, we won an RFP, and the label started giving us, a good chunk of money each month to keep feeding them insights. And the objective always was, hey, let's just take this code base and go sell it to the label and, life-changing money, but we had pretty much a clean cap table, and we'll go have an earn out at a label and, have a great time working in the music industry. That was the plan. And so February, talk about like timing of things like COVID, something else happened in April of 2021. So Cardi was coming out with a song in February of 2021. And essentially we gave them our recommended media mix of how they should shift their budget around and predicted how many streams she would get compared to their existing media strengths. Sounds very familiar to what we do today, except with a tech platform. We predicted that song at 96.3% accurate. And we're getting ready to like have very formalized conversations with the label. And on April 26th of 2021, Apple announced this thing called iOS 14.5. And I'll never forget that is.
I don't know what that is.
Historical, right? And I'll never forget, he called me and was like, this is a thing. And this thing is designed to be solved based off of the map that we have and can work across any single dollar spent online. Go pick your industry. So at that point, we said, we're going to go build a tech platform. Now, the means to the end, I don't come from a background where I could call somebody and say, hey, let's bootstrap like this thing to like actually get this deployed, right? So he had built all thousands and thousands of line of algorithms that didn't exist on any research paper. And to get that deployed, it required us to go on the venture journey route. And so we were forced, the means to the end for us to be talking today was venture.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's, I'll take the veil off for Ad Beacon, right? So
Please.
I already had an existing BI team because I'd worked with them for years on the agency side. Love them. So they were able to build the tech. They're incredible. Then I already had an agency founder as my business partner. He's also the co-founder. and the other co-founder is the head of BI. So like we had the three heads, right? I'm already injected in the space for media buying and knowing all the brands and having the relationships and building that side. And I'm also the user end. We've got the agency side, right? So he understands the agency component and he's also self-funding it alongside myself. And then you've got our head of BI. So we kind of had the cheat code there.
Right.
Also, what you're building was completely different than what we were building. We were building something that wasn't proprietary, that isn't proprietary. Everything is very straightforward. We just found a different way to do it so we could market it. You have something that's proprietary, that does need to build out, that needs also education alongside it. You need funding. It's a different mix. Get it? Mix. But that's 100%. Like that's why I ask you the question, because the person that you are, I think it's difficult to have a lot of those conversations for people who don't know that are trying to get funding. It's very hollow. They're not all, but the majority are. So in that time, I always am very curious as to how you're feeling. And obviously, you're never going to like slap the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it is a very different experience. It is a complete business exchange. They're putting money in to get money out. And there's also a lot of pressure. And yeah. So anyway, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. I question for you, have you ever thought about like, okay, you bootstrapped it, you had, you obviously had the networking relationship, you get product adoption, maybe not as much product education, but, obviously like you guys are prepared to educate. Have you guys ever thought about like, hey, should we go raise money? Or has it always just been the ethos of like, we went this journey and nothing's going to sway us the other way?
No, I think we're at a point where we're going to need to. My number one goal with my co-founder was profitability, right?
Yeah.
So like break
Smart.
even to profitability, just proof of concept. I think uh, a couple of my friends in the back end, including Chase Moseni, who's my cousin, who is with the Creative OS team, and then he's also was heatmap.com. We talk about this all the time, and there's a couple different ways you can go about SaaS, in my opinion. One, you can get mass adoption, have that funding, and then acquire all these customers, and then figure it out on the way. Figure out whether or not your platform is good, what's good or what's bad, because now you have a good amount of data points to understand what is being used and what is not. I took a complete reverse route. I wanted to organically see people coming on and people churning and why.
Right.
And I mean, it's just it's a patient route, right? We're not able to, so we're a $500,000 company right now. We're not anything huge in comparison to where a lot of my friends I'm watching, they're like, oh, we're going to hit 2 million ARR. I'm like, that's incredible. But like, I want to hit a place that is stable and that I would project 1.5 for this next year. I know we can scale it, but in order to scale it, thank you. In order for us to scale it, I need to have money to what I want to become. So let me just kind of like unveil where our heads are at. I don't want to be an attribution platform anymore. I think that that's just one part of the story. I think that was the iOS 14.5 story, to your point. I want to be the complete Swiss Army knife and hub for media buyers and agency teams. I want them to go in there for comms, for planning, for forecast, all of it, everything in one place. I want it to be the agency tool that also is based off of accurate data. That's my goal. It's something completely different than attribution. And in order to do that, we need funding. In order to do that, not only even on the marketing side, but actually on the dev side. So yes, now who that is, I think I'm going to be a little too picky about. I also want to be a mom. I would like to kind of like kick back, still be the face, still spearhead, sure, if you'd want. But I'd also like to start a family. So I don't think bootstrapping is doable forever in SaaS.
I feel that. I have one more question for you, if you don't mind.
What?
So no, it's an interesting question where you're like, hey, there was a ton of venture funding going into first party MTA providers during that time. Did you ever feel like you woke up and you saw LinkedIn and the news blowing up and it's like, Triple Whale does this huge round or somebody does this huge round, or you're like, but you stood true to your guns of like taking the patient route. But like when you saw that news, did it ever like give you a quick like heart skip for a quick second? Like,
I think my
do I need to
co-founder,
go raise?
no, my co-founder for sure, he got the itch. For people who don't know, I have a background in modeling, and often what you'll do is when you go to an audition, they gas you up. They make you feel so good, and you're like, I booked that. I remember calling my mom, and I'm like, I booked that shit. And then they would never call you, so you get your
Sounds like
hopes
the
up.
VCs.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I'm used to this, like actions speak louder than words. I also, distinctly remember I still have the slide where I was looking at market share before we went out. And because we had somebody that was really interested in investing $1 million within the first year of us starting and was very serious about it. And when we did that, I did like a full slide of market share and like also how much funding Triple got, how much funding Northbeam got, Hyros, Wicked Reports, and where we were in the market in comparison.
Right.
And obviously we're Thimble. And I think it got my co-founder really excited, but then we realized, like, we don't need funding right now. Like, we have all the resources. We're heading towards profitability. We're really a slim team. We don't need to. I think that aha moment, and also when you have VC, you're diminishing your shares, you're diminishing your equity. It dilutes. And I'm like, I don't work this fucking hard to dilute. No. No, so I think it's a pride thing, but I think also to a certain extent you're gonna have to in order it's a necessary evil to your point. So to answer your question, there's that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. At least you're thoughtful about it, right? And
Always, you have to be.
good self-awareness too. It's like, I know I'm prideful about this, but I also have self-awareness of like, if I want to scale this thing, if I want to be a mother, like, there's means to different sort of ends, and that evolves as humans and personally, professionally evolve.
Yeah, I'm never gonna be that dude that's like, "Scale, scale, scale," and like, "Oh my god, we made all this money." It's like, there's something funny in SaaS and, like, we can move on 'cause it's not about us, but I do love this back and forth and ping pong. I do think about SaaS as often it's like a catch-up game where it's like, "Hey, we're gonna have" it's either one side or the other. It's we have a really great product, but no marketing, and nobody knows about it, or you have a really great marketing team and a really mundane product. And I was like, I want to start with a really strong product and a really strong personal brand, because if you're really invested in my personal brand, you're probably gonna feel like the platform is gonna be similar. And then I want you to have like a whoa moment, like a, oh wow, like this is actually legit. That was my strategy, and it could have failed, and it seems like it's doing fairly well. But I get really worried about SaaS when people come into the space and then I'm like, I just want to see your platform. Cause I know the game. I know the game so well. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, what is this shit? But anyway, I digress.
I it's we could chat for hours on that. It is, and you know what? Just quick point of that is like when OpenAI announced like their LLM ChatGPT, I think it was like November 22nd. Um, it was a dagger to like all of us at Prescient AI, and it was like, now you're going to see SaaS companies come in here who literally just put a wrapper and a dashboard on top of an AI and call themselves an AI company, market the platform really well, where we have done nothing but pure R&D, true machine learning models that are ensembled and just like a beautiful work of art. And, it's something that you'd have to just push through. But yeah, I agree with you. It's like, it worries me about SaaS for like the perceived value or the perceived reputation without being able to like dig into the platform and actually like see, is this legit or not? And the market will let the people that are legit stay, and marketing and hype can only last for so long.
I think that's a beautiful point that you make. AI is like, I made a joke the other day, like a couple of months ago, where it's like you walk on stage at any conference, someone says AI and everyone's clapping for no freaking reason. And then they walk off and like they're a god. And you're like, and it's like it's the buzzword. And there's two sides of AI, in my opinion. There's one, which is the Michael True side, right? The prescient AI side, where it's these like beautiful algorithms and words I can't pronounce. And then you've got the other side, which is just insights. A lot of our competitors, and including us, so we just launched AI, but it's not, to me, it's just insights. It's notes, it's saving time. It's just reading the data as it stands and then giving you suggestions based off of a media buyer centric mind that we've trained. That's nothing crazy. It's nothing crazy. We don't claim to be an AI company. We have an AI insights tool. Great. But before we even, because we could have launched this maybe a year ago and I didn't want to. I was like, I'm so sick of an AI going, you go, how much money did I spend? Any trained media buyer can look at a screen and know how much money they spent. You don't need an AI to tell you. It's laziness. So what is it going to do to further your life, help your life, make things better? I think you and your team have done a really beautiful job of the complexity of what AI is versus this like very standard assumption of what it can be. And anyway, I digress. I digress. Tell me more failures. Is that your failure? What is the most recent failure that you've had that you've learned from, small or large, that you feel like, damn,
Um, I would say a most recent failure of mine was trying to stay into founder-led sales as long as I wanted to. It was,
Damn it.
it was hard. I've been in like the BD side of SaaS for 15 years now, and it's all I knew. And it was so much joy of like sitting down with a brand and building a relationship with the person where like we closed a deal yesterday and I got a text from the guy. He's like, "Hey brother, like so happy. Here's my number. Like hit me up when you're out here." It's like, that's the type of relationships that I had built and enjoyed that. But it got to the point where, I hired this rock star Laura from Klaviyo. We hired more of like a commercial team. Finally, she was like, "Dude, you gotta get off the calls." Like one, it's like, let's save you till the end to kind of come in. And I think that I caused a little bit of disruption that allowed us to maybe fail in the sense of not getting her as many swings of the bat on her own or doing it the way she wanted to go do it. And which then has a compounding impact of like, hey, is there an opportunity cost for me trying to put my, head out of the sand to stay in this as long as I did? So I wouldn't call it like a catastrophic failure, but I definitely failed the approach of leaving founder-led sales to, kind of taking a step back. And, we went from 9 to 35 employees and, a snap of a finger and the whole business changed. And I was like, it took me a little bit to adjust, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. It's like it's this idea of success, but then you're still feeling like what is it called? Refugee mentality. Like you constantly are worried that you're gonna go back. So you're like, I gotta lead this ship. We got here because of our what we had done. Why would we go backwards? And I also see the point. The words that I have for this year are big brain energy, which is like the
I
dumbest
love
way to
that.
put it, but it's big brain energy, right? So small brain energy is hiring people to do something and then doing it for them. Small brain energy is going, yeah,
My
it's
my head
free.
shrinks right there. I was
Damn
small.
it.
I was small brain energy for sure.
I mean, I think we're at the phase now where I have to be on the calls, but I think that that's 100% where it needs to be. And I think to myself, like, where do you get to a point where, like, if you left for 2 weeks, God forbid something were to happen to you or your family, is your company going to completely dismantled? If it is, you did yourself a disservice. You did your company a disservice. You are too ego tied into your company. Um, Also, too, for Laura, and she sounds like an awesome person, right? Like she's going, you paid me to do a job. Let me do my job. Also, that makes me piggyback. I am very intrigued to know why I don't see more of your face on content because that could allow for more. But are you and your co founder more on like a let Prescient speak for itself and we don't want faces behind the brand? Like where branding wise are you with
Yeah,
it?
it's a you had mentioned before it was like I want to go and let people churn, get on the product and like go build relationships. That was the approach that I took when my first tour on the concert my first like stop on the conference circuit was at Sendlane. And I remember like Nick Shackelford and I took a walk and it was like an hour and a half walk. And it was just like asking questions about the industry. I was very like, didn't want to jump out and be the face of something before understanding like the dynamics in this industry, for better or for worse. And I love it because there's a great community here, but I very much look at this as like high school, right? You
Oh
have
yeah.
like, it's very high school as the big, like jocks and stuff, the big brands. And like, even the SaaS vendors are kind of viewed as like the vultures, if you will. Like, they're like
Not me,
pouncing on it.
not I.
No,
Not
no,
I.
that,
Yeah,
it's
no,
a,
no. Like,
but like D2C Twitter would like blow some of, I came in, I'm like, oh, that shit's going down right now on Twitter. And so I wanted to make sure that I understood and met the right people without trying to just like go shove my face as this new company on there. And in conjunction and in parallel to that, we were just getting ready to release like this optimization model, which was truly first of its kind. I'm like, all right, well, I kind of met the right people. Like, let's get people on the platform and let's let the product speak for itself. This last year, after we did our Series A last year, we started ramping up some of that external branding. Like Cody has 4 articles in Forbes now. I speak at some conferences from time to time. I don't know if I'm ever going to I post on LinkedIn a ton. My followers, I just hit 10,000 followers. It went up 5,000 this last year. And so I'm active there, like pumping me on ads I don't know if that will ever be the play of like branding my face anywhere. And I'd probably get someone better looking at the company to put their face on the front of that. But I don't think that's ever going to be my approach.
Hot take, ads don't work for SaaS. Um, but that's neither here nor there. I think your approach I think your approach was actually really smart. I wanted to dissect what you said. Number one, D2C is 100% high school, which is why I loved it, because imagine going back to high school with your brain now. Imagine
Also,
like, right? So that's kind of the way I took it, where it was like, okay, I'm not insecure anymore. I'm not like trying to figure out who I am anymore. Like I know who I am, and I'm going to go back into the Shark Tank and I'm going to own this club or like school. However, I also find it funny. I do think D2C is like a bunch of nerds that ended up getting money and now they want to play high school again. And they're like, I'm the jock now. And you're like, no, bro, you're still tuba and you need to chill, sit down. It's like, but 100%. And I think it is evolving. I was really, it was a boys club for a while, which I don't have a problem with. I think what was interesting though is now people are being burned for putting other people down. It was when we first came into the space, I think you were a little bit earlier than me. People were really like being praised for being nasty on Twitter and going after people and all of that. I was even part of one of those Twitter dramas for a while. And now people are like, I'm tired of the drama. Like, stop. We're all kind of low key maturing, I hope.
yeah.
I'm also seeing less posts on Twitter. So maybe it's a migration there. But I think you being the face and I think I only have you as the face of Prescient right now. I haven't been able to meet your co-founder. I don't believe I have. But I do think that there is strength in having a face to the name of a brand, because if anything were to happen, I know who to go to as a consumer, right? I think a lot of SaaS companies, as much as great as they are and as big as they are, they don't have a face because, and that's good. But I think in this day and age, it's like a Nike and like an Adidas. There's no personality behind it anymore. So they have to rely on like these different campaigns to keep them alive versus somebody like a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates can come out and go, this is what we're working on. This is who we are. There's a strength there. So there's two different styles, but I think the style that you guys have been doing is fantastic. And I'm rooting you guys on. I've been always rooting you on since day one. You're welcome. You deserve
Yeah.
it. Stand good
Right back,
person.
right back at you. 100%. It was interesting. Like one of the more proud moments I had of like showing up into high school was unprovoked a very reputable brand with one of those like leaders in D2C posted was like, I just onboarded Prescient and I'm not going to turn off Tatari now. I would have turned it off. Right. And then like all down below that, like there was just like a bunch of people shouting out that I was like, I'm a good human. And it was like nice to like, Mike's a good guy and they're running a good show over there. And for me, like really putting again, tying it back to like just trying to throw my face out everywhere versus like building a relationship and having people talk about the way that I do business. I think is creating kind of a halo effect. Ironically, that's what our models are called. It's a halo effect of like, here's the face of the business. But I don't disagree with you. For us to go to this next phase, like I'm going to have to be more of a face, and I'll be doing a lot of speaking events this year. And if you have any good ideas, maybe off after this call about how I could get my face out there more, I will.
Oh yeah, I can plug you in. I accidentally got like thrown in to the speaking circuit and I'm really grateful for it. And I think also too, you being a good person, that halo effect. Have you ever read the book? I'm sure you have. Simon Sinek, Start with Why.
Start with why. Yeah, I haven't read the book, but I've watched like
Yes,
every
his shorts and stuff.
talking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So by the
the
way,
why, how, and the what. Yeah.
yes, I'm gonna add you to this regardless if you want to. It's DTC or direct to consumer book club through Ad Beacon. So we have a book we have 78 people in it. It's crazy.
Well, I love
Yeah,
that.
I just
Everybody
posted
loves to read.
I don't think so, because I just recently started reading. I love reading now, but I started it like a couple weeks ago. I just put it out on Twitter. Is anyone down for this? And it just like picked up steam. But every month we have a theme, and the first one for the start of the year was Start with Why, Simon Sinek, and it was so good because it was very oddly written. I don't love his style of writing because it was very repetitive. However, it did take back as to customer loyalty to people who are good, to knowing their mission and their why versus what they do, because the what they do's will run out and the why they do it won't. So my point behind this is, so if I know Michael True and his co-founder, repeat his name again, Cody. Yeah. If
Cody.
Cody and Michael are good people, Mike are good people, I'm more likely to weather the storm when shit hits the fan, because it will, always will.
Always does.
Um, always does. I'm willing to weather the storm versus a competitor who I don't have a face or a name or attachment to or who they are, because it's like this fictitious person in the sky that pressed the wrong button versus Mike and Cody. So I am a huge fan of that book and starting with why. And I'm even thinking about like how we do marketing. But anyway, every month is a different theme: negotiation,
Nice.
negotiator,
Let's go.
and be like
I love it.
self talk, how to be a better leader, all these things, right? And self development. Because rounding it back, we always fail. We will always fail and we will always succeed. And I think when you get to the point of 100 and however many failures and no's that you had, you're kind of cool with sitting in a box and being like, maybe I'll live here for a couple of years, but I'll always find a way to make money. And one day someone's going to say yes. And anyway, that's kind
That's
of
how
where
it
my
goes.
mind's at. Yeah.
I love it. I love my dad. My dad describes it perfectly. He was like, imagine you were a Roomba and you're in this room and you have this little hole is exactly, the width to get out of it. And you bounce around every wall and those are getting your nose, but you're learning the walls of why, well, you're learning why and how to get closer to that hole. And then you go into another room and you're going to have more failures until you get to that next phase. And then he translated over to like, then you have a bus and you pick some people up on that bus and you go on that Roomba and you go through the next phase and some people get off the bus and new people get on the bus. But that bus is always driving towards what that why is, right?
Mm,
And failures are going to come along the way with various different peoples. And it's how you learn from it and what actions you take from there.
I love that Roomba idea. Because I usually ask like what type of leader are you, but I feel like you're leaking and how you are just with the way you speak. So I don't even think that's a necessary question. But I think it's important to round it out because I don't want podcasts to be too long. And I want to say, if you could have a hot take in today's day and age, whether it be D2C or the world, what is your hot take right now? It's a very interesting time in the world, a lot going on, and it could be as simple as I hate chocolate pudding, or it could be as complex as the neuro whatever you said in terms of your algorithmic findings.
I want to do maybe two, but I'm going to do one for just a step.
You can do all of it.
The I think like outside of D2C or marketing in general is there is not enough personal diligence done on making decisions. And that could be a personal decision or a professional decision. There's so much content and there's so much hype around somebody's using this or somebody's, doing this form of Pilates or they're lifting this way with this sort of protein. And people are just so quick to like act on something based off of the hype that exists in the amount of content they see in such a short period of time. Where before it was much more thoughtful research of how you would make these decisions and before you'd make these decisions. And so I just think there's so much mental stimulation and stuff in front of people that they tend to act really quickly on things, maybe without doing enough diligence.
100%. Do you think that every generation repels the generation before it?
Yeah, I think like, well, it's interesting where, my nieces and nephews, like I still make decisions based off of what life was like before them, but I'm also making now decisions based off of the way they make decisions in life with like all of this content and stimulation. So I think I'm curious to see what happens with the following generations of like, how do they think about, taking in, I have this little algorithm on my arm, but essentially it's like talking about like, how do you maximize your actions based off of the probability of the reward in that future state or in that current state. And it's like, how do you continuously learn from these actions? And how do you understand like, hey, I thought this was going to happen based on this action and the probability did not go my way. So my reward was not as happy in that state. Well, the next time I'm going to make an action, I'm going to make sure that I'm optimizing for that optimal reward. And I don't think that's going to change regardless of how humankind evolves. Mammals are going to make decisions based off of some sort of reward and some sort of actions they take.
That is awesome. I think there's going to be two people who listen to this podcast. One that goes, shit, I want to sit with Mike and like just go, because that's how I feel. I'm like, man, we could go into it because I'd be like, ooh, the probability of action. Interesting. Let's like dive in. But then there's the other person who just goes right above their head and they're like, okay, whatever. And
Cool.
this is cool. But I agree with you. And this is the type of stuff that I love talking to you about over like maybe potentially a fire pit, and we just talk and talk and talk. And this is why I'm really grateful to have you in our life and like just associated at all. It's an honor, and I'm thankful that you came on the podcast. I know anybody who listened to this definitely gained a lot of insight, and we're rooting for Prescient. I think we want MMM to succeed. I'd love to dive in off camera about Meridian's MMM and what's coming up with the competitive market for you and how you're going to adjust and pivot. But I'm also here going, you're smart enough to get around it and you're smart enough to succeed. And I know you're going to. And it's the same thing with our market, right? Our market, I think my competitor just like released free attribution. So you always have to pivot and do stuff. And I'm really intrigued, but I'm going to leave everybody on that cliffhanger. And that being said, thank you for coming onto the podcast. It's an honor. Michael True, man. Where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn as Michael True. I'm not
10,000 followers.
followers on Twitter. So I think it's an _Michael_True, something along those lines.
Okay.
And then just, yeah, you can fire me up an email too. It's mike@prescientai.com. And the last thing I'll say is ton of respect for you. I'm grateful and glad for the friendship. And, you should be very proud of the position that you have, put AdBeacon in the way that you did it, and be excited and rooting you on for the future as well. So thank you for
I
having me.
appreciate that. Thank you so much.